I'm Iris Muller. I'm a certified rehabilitation counselor and a proud mom of 2 children, one of whom has quadriplegic cerebral palsy and is nonverbal.
And I'm Alma Schneider, a licensed clinical social worker and the proud mom of 4 children, one of whom has Prader-Willi syndrome.
In this podcast, we discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities.
Prepare to laugh, cry, and hopefully learn something new. This is Two Moms, No Fluff. Okay, hello and welcome to Two Moms, No Fluff, the podcast where we talk about all things related to raising kids with disabilities. And I'm here with my partner, Iris Miller. Iris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited, especially excited to introduce our 2 guests. And today we have the great honor of having both Tom and Amanda Dyer, who are the directors, producers, and cinematographers of the amazing documentary Unseen. And I would let you both introduce yourself, but we're really honored to have you on our podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
So if you guys don't mind maybe telling our audience a little bit about yourselves so they get to know who you are and a little bit about where you came from and what brought you here to our podcast today.
Yeah, good question. That's kind of the first thing everyone wants to know is like, how did you get into this topic? Because we're not parents or caregivers. So it's not our personal story. And the answer is kind of, we really just accidentally stumbled into it. We both work in the creative field where we live in Nashville, Tennessee. We've been married for a long time, 13 years. So we had talked about just doing a documentary project kind of for fun, honestly, just like, hey, Tom's a director and cinematographer as his job. And then I have a marketing company, and we kind of just wanted to do something creative together as a collaborative process. We didn't really know what that was going to be about. Kind of just after, not 2 weeks after having this conversation about wanting to make a documentary together, I stumbled across a comment on Facebook, like just a comment on Facebook. I just happened to see it was like an acquaintance of an acquaintance. And it was someone saying that she thought they'd always needed a documentary about what it means to be a caregiver or a parent caregiver of a child with disabilities, just because people really had no idea what goes on. And I just thought that was kind of interesting. And it turns out she lived like 30 minutes away from us, which was just kind of crazy, in online world. So we met up. It ended up being Jess, who is featured in the documentary. And she and Ryan, her husband, just started telling us stories about their life. And it just kind of blew us away that all this is kind of going on in our community, in families that we know, and schools, neighborhoods around the country, and just it was going so unseen. So we started talking to other families that just shared very similar issues. I have like a document where I just have people using the same language over and over to describe things. So we just quickly realized that this was such an important topic. And just little by little, kind of step by step, learned more, talked to more and more people, started piecing together the story. And then about 3 years, here we are.
I think that once we started to learn a lot of this, we were so shocked at things that we just didn't know. That's kind of our on-ramp for it, is like Amanda said, we're not parents or caregivers, but we started to learn about this thing that was happening all around us that we had no knowledge of. And so our hope is that our surprise and our shock and our learning process helps us tell this story from a unique perspective, and hopefully opens that up a little bit for people like us who were just unaware. And so that's what gripped us, was just to use the title, the unseen nature of it.
Yeah, and we were Iris and I both have seen the documentary, and we were so blown away by the fact that you got it. You interviewed people who told our story. We we were so happy. I mean, it was very hard to watch. I'm not going to lie. For both of us, it was tough to watch because it was so real. It was so raw, and we were amazed that you don't have a connection to the disability world, because this is a topic that really is, we are unseen by a lot of people. And I love, the tagline to your film is unseen: how we're failing parent caregivers and why it matters. And we so appreciate, especially the tagline, why it matters. There are so many pieces to this that need to be, policy needs to be changed, and allies. One of the things that our podcast does, it helps parents feel less alone, less isolated, but our podcast is also for allies, for people to learn about what they can do to help our community. So you just really got that in such a great way. And, we're really, really grateful.
We're totally indebted to the parents who were willing to share, willing to be vulnerable. I mean, that I am not taking credit for that. That was because they were brave and would share and be open and, talk about things that are hard to talk about. So that's totally because of
had
them.
A lot of help along the way.
Yeah. The process of making the film, can you talk a little bit about that and let us know, was there anything that really surprised you in the process? I mean, it sounds like it was all kind of new information for you, but what surprised you? What was the process like for you?
I mean, the process, it started out, it was a research project, right? I mean, it's something that we had no knowledge of at first. And so it was, okay, well, how can we soak up as much of this as we actually can? That was a lot of conversations with Jess and her family. It's a lot of feedback from other people. And I think one of the things that always stuck out to me was when we started getting some of these responses from other people, just how identical a lot of them were. And it's kind of like Amanda said, like word for word. And you see that in the film. It's those other voices that are in the film. All of that kind of came in individually, and it just all fit together identically. It was kind of crazy to witness that. And so it was just doing as much of the learning. Amanda can speak even more to that. She's definitely was more involved on that side of things, but just hearing those stories and how they lined up was just always surprised me how many people had the exact same experience, not the same, their own unique experience, but the same exact, feelings and issues and
challenges. I mean, it was a learning process for sure, just from both sides of like learning the subject matter and getting to know the families, but then also I hadn't done a project like this before, so we were really kind of just little by little, but it was hard at times. It was overwhelming. It still is at times, because now we feel this responsibility to get it out and get it in hands that can use it to make a difference for families. But all along the way, the encouraging aspect was just how many parents were saying to us and still say to us, just thank you for doing this, how that it's meaningful to them that just anyone's even paying attention or like making an effort to put something like this into the world and representing their stories in that difficult but unfiltered way, which I know you all appreciate, the no fluff aspect. So it's just been very rewarding too to hear from parents that say it's been meaningful to them. So now that's kind of the fuel that we need to keep it going. And now that it's finished, we're still just really at the beginning, because it's getting it out, it's getting it in front of people in the right hands, that kind of thing. So that's the fuel that keeps us going, is the parents who've said they appreciate it.
I really want to know kind of from your guys' perspective, because as an audience to the film, I get the message that I understand of it. But when you embarked on this journey, what was the message that you wanted to transfer through this film? And do you feel that now that there was a big audience just for the first launch of the film, do you feel that this came across and that you succeeded in delivering the message you intended?
I ask myself that a lot. I mean, we go back and forth. I think, I mean, for one thing, early on, we kind of thought that maybe caregivers themselves wouldn't really care about this content because, you know, you're living it. What do you care about seeing it represented? So we didn't even necessarily think that they were going to be a prime audience of the film. And then we found out pretty quickly that wasn't true, that many caregivers were coming forward to say, you know, that it resonated with them and that it was kind of a like healing or cathartic experience to watch it and feel validated that, you know, you're not alone in these experiences. So, I mean, I think, like you said, we've heard that quite a bit, that it is accurate. Of course, it's not everyone's story, and that's, if it's not your story, that's great. If your story is harder, like there's so many different circumstances, so many nuances that we definitely appreciate. But we did try to just capture what we heard from parents, what they were telling us. So now we're really concentrating on how do we get the film into other audiences as well. So caregivers have kind of served as like a great army to help spread the word. So, you know, they've said, hey, family, will you watch this and learn more about what, you know, what it's like in our lives? Or, you know, sending it to, we've been approached by hundreds of organizations, nonprofits, churches, large businesses, corporations, who are looking at doing screenings and having these conversations about what changes need to happen. So I think that's the most encouraging thing. And what I'm always excited to tell caregivers who found it is like, hey, this is not just a film for caregivers. We are working on getting it out into the community in lots of different kind of ways to get that message out, that we need, you know, more resources and more support.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, our ultimate goal the whole time was awareness, right, from the onset. And I think to us, awareness, while we absolutely want caregivers and people in that community to be supported and seen, our thought was, you know, it may not do much for awareness if it's solely for them, right? We wanted it to get in front of people that don't know about this and can support from an outside perspective, right? Policy and just community, you know, people that are not caregivers or not involved in that. And so it was important for us to try and get those eyeballs as well. And it was very important from the onset for us to make sure that whatever we did, however we made it, it was very honest and very raw. We didn't really want to sugarcoat anything. We just felt like that would be, I wouldn't do justice to the things that these families go through. And also, you know, make something like this and you put a bow on the end of it, it doesn't really do much to spark any sort of advocacy or action. Yeah. So
we appreciated that. I mean, it was definitely not sugar-coated. It was absolutely not sugar-coated. And it was very, very refreshing to see that, because so much, you know, they call it inspa porn, you know, that kids who, you know, these fluffy little things that kids are doing who have disabilities. And this was really hardcore. I mean, it was hardcore. It was tough to watch. And I kept thinking there was going to be a little bow at the end, and there wasn't. And I think that really was very, very powerful. We both did. So it sounds like this is something new for both of you. How was it, you know, personally to do this together? I mean, you've been married for a long time. You were probably together before this. Having this be the first time that you collaborated, what was it like to do this together?
I mean, it was on the whole, it was great. I mean, I think as anyone can expect, there are rough patches in any sort of collaborative process, right? But we're so used to doing, both of us are so used to doing client work, you know, for things that honestly, at the end of the day, just like how much difference do they make? You know, how many widgets are sold, or, you know, so like to be able to come together and do something creative that is ultimately going to make a difference and is for the greater good, It's very rewarding. And it was very tough at times for sure, especially just grappling with things that we don't know, or things that are just heartbreaking. I mean, obviously it's not always an easy thing to do, but I think we got a lot of energy out of the people that we talked to, and just hearing like, I mean, I remember several times just getting down or getting frustrated by the process because it is very challenging, but then hearing some of this feedback that we would be getting from people sending in videos or sending in messages, and really being fueled by that.
Yeah, like quitting wasn't an option.
Yeah,
once
no way.
Once we got underway. I think in terms of like the collaboration, we kind of figured out like what our lanes were. And once we figured out exactly how we needed to work together, it was pretty smooth. Like Tom being, he's the cinematographer, controlling how it looks and feels and the visual and technical side of it. And then I spent a little more time in like the research. What are the issues? How's the story need to come together? That kind of thing. So once we both kind of found that harmony, I think it worked pretty well. And it was a good, I mean, I don't think there's a lot made with kind of the co-director setup, but it seemed to work for us.
Yeah.
Wow. And I want to know how do you guys feel about the film being received so far? The comments that you guys get from both family members and caregivers and the general community, people like what you're describing yourself that had no familiarity with this topic beforehand. I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been overwhelming and I mean, exciting, just because like we said, we were just kind of like, oh, let's do a little project on the side. Didn't really plan for anything beyond that. So as it started getting traction and we realized how important of an issue it was, that was just exciting that, caregivers were coming together, and even just saying like, when we did like a crowdfunding campaign, like being willing to donate $10 or $20 just to trust us to make something like this, that was so meaningful. So like you said, anytime I get discouraged or overwhelmed, I just kind of can go back to like the comments that parents have told us, where just saying that it was so meaningful and that it just either improve their experience in some way or another. That is what has helped us go on. And I mean, truthfully, it's not 100% positive feedback. There are some people that are like, this isn't for me. Either it's too like you said, kind of too raw, or they feel like we didn't focus enough on the positive aspects of it. So I mean, and I've learned through this experience that there's tons of like controversial things within the disability community that we really wrestled with, because we wanted to be fair and we wanted to present an accurate picture, and we all wanted to be realistic, but also, in no way minimizing individuals with disabilities or anything like that. So just, it's been this whole swirl of things we've learned as we went along the way. But even, if there's people that it's not for you, we totally get that. And I think we just come back to the question of, why did we find so many caregivers who have this story, who are having these challenges? Like, why was it so easy to find people to participate? Like, there's obviously a problem. Yes. And if it's not everyone's problem, but it is something that our communities and our society is really missing. So regardless of whether, feedback aside, we kind of come back to that. Like, we want to get to the point where a documentary like this is irrelevant, but we're not there yet.
No. And I think the mere fact that it is even a little bit controversial says something, that you've touched a nerve. And there is a lot of, I don't want to use the word squabbling because it sounds like that minimizes it, but there are a lot of, there's a lot of tension within the disability community, people who have disabilities, as well as people who take care of people with disabilities and who have children with disabilities. And that's that can make an already challenging situation even more challenging, with, when there's dissension and conflict within the community itself. So you've sort of answered this question a little bit or touched on it, but is there anything that you'd like to let parents of children with disabilities know, that or a message that you would like to give to caregivers that was not covered in the film? Was there anything after the film was made that you felt like, oh, I wish we had put this in there, or we shouldn't have put that in there? Is there anything like that for you?
No one's asked that yet.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it, and some of the stuff that didn't make it, it was literally just from a, when you're making something like this, you have to take into account flow and how it all comes together, and so
how long it's going to be.
And so yeah, there's by no means do we consider this a comprehensive look into these lives and what these people go through and these experiences.
I would say the thing I hear the most that people feel like is not in there that is extremely important is like sibling relationships and parents kind of trying to figure out how do you navigate all your kids and having a child or multiple children with disabilities. I think it wasn't that we didn't realize that was an issue or didn't want to acknowledge it or something. It was just, like you said, kind of how do we narrow down into something manageable? So yeah, we've talked about kind of what does the next thing look like? Do we do companion pieces that kind of explore some of these other issues? There's tons of options of where we could kind of go from here. I think some people have said, I've heard a few times, like, are those families okay? Like, are they want to kind of do something to help these families that are in the film. And I think it is important to know that, like, this is just one slice of a family's life. Like, you're only seeing this very narrow glimpse. There's tons of joys, there's tons of positive experiences, there's tons of learning, like growth that happens as a family. And just because you're seeing some of these hard bits doesn't mean that's all there is. And I think most people realize that. But I mean, that the film is about the hard parts. So that's what you're seeing. But we are, we're very aware that's not all there is to the story. And that was kind of the goal, was just like, let's look at these parts that are difficult and uncomfortable to think about, with the goal of changing it so fewer and fewer families have to go through these challenges, or at least go through them alone. Do you have any thoughts? What do you think we should?
You tell us.
Yeah.
I want to say that I think if families have kind of an objection to the message or how it was presented, I almost want to say they probably didn't hit rock bottom in terms of how hard caregiving was for them, because it does leave some families like really crawling on their knees. The magnitude of caregiving that is needed for some of the children is just is not humanly possible. And I think Alma and I recorded an episode to the podcast before meeting and interviewing the two of you, just after we each watched the film, and then we met, and without saying anything to each other, we kind of shared our reaction to it. And it's this is what is important, is that people tend to not see what was shown in the film. And it's almost for the parents, for caregivers, and I'll speak for myself right now, it's almost as if you broke the cycle of isolation by showing me other families in that situation that, society almost forgot about us and expect us to continue on with our caregiving lives without the necessary help. And it's been eye-opening to see also the suffering of others. In a way, there was some comfort in it. It's insane, but it is in a way comforting. And I really, really do hope that this is just the beginning, your film, of raising the awareness. And this is obviously what Alma and I are trying to do for a long while now with the podcast, and to bring this to the mainstream conversation, because we need as a society to improve and to offer those families, the parents, something more. This is really an unfair situation, and especially right now with all the discussions that we have about you know, pro-choice, pro-life, etc. This is something that what do we do for the living, and how can we support people better?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the families in the film, and I wanted to know how did you get all of those people that were basically calling in and doing those phone interviews with you for the film? How did you guys manage to touch base with those families and to select the bits and pieces that you plugged into the film?
We mostly did all those connections through social media. We started out with that idea mainly as like a research.
That was part of the research project. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, send us your thoughts.
Yeah.
And we, you know, got a handful and started kind of seeing, because we were at the beginning, we were just looking for the themes, like where are we going with this? What are the issues that families are encountering? And we about halfway through kind of realized, like, I think they should actually be in there. Like,
I mean, you saw them, like once we saw those,
they're so powerful,
so compelling, you know. And one thing we did want to be cautious of is not, you know, we were working with Jess and her family to tell that story, but we didn't want it, knowing that isolation was such a huge topic here. We didn't want it to be an isolated experience, right? And so having those other voices to add in and for them to play off of each other and connect, you know, kind of have that we saw those particular voices as representing the larger community, right? We were hearing a very focused version of it from Jess and her family, and then you're hearing the echoes of that from these people that are also speaking into it. And I think we were surprised. I was surprised by the number that we got of the people willing to just go there, right? I mean, some of these people really just
and we had way more that we couldn't even use for different reasons. So yeah, I kind of thought about could we do something else with those other testimonials that didn't make it in for various reasons. But yeah, I think it was also an opportunity to show different diversity of stories in terms of like family makeup, racial background, economic situation, geography in the country, you know, all those factors. And honestly, the kind of takeaway for me was more, this is a very, you know, you can change the details of the families, but most of what they're saying is all very similar. So I think that was a way to show like this is a universal challenge. So I'm glad that we went that route, but it was very powerful to us to see those different stories coming in, and we kind of realized like we've got to get these in there as just a way to really show this is not just one family, this is such a big challenge.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you know, spoiler alert, but the fact that you did communicate with these families via for the film via Zoom, that because so many of us are not able to get to a place to be filmed, or because of the nature of our lives at home. So to be able to participate in a documentary by being interviewed, you know, from far away, from all over the country, you said, I think that also gave it it was powerful for me. And I really appreciated that, because COVID and being able to participate, and this is the story of so many people who have children with disabilities and their own disabilities, to be able to participate in life via Zoom has been an amazing change for people who couldn't participate because of travel or because of leaving their child at home. So I love that they were able to participate in your film from far away by doing it on the phone or by you know, video. So
yeah, in most cases we were able to just say like, here's the questions we want you to answer, and kind of take your time, you know, record your video, do it when you have time and space to do it and think about it, which I know was a challenge for a lot of parents who are like, I don't have 5 minutes.
Exactly.
So yeah, we were grateful to those who made that effort. We know it's not easy to do that.
Yeah. Well, we so appreciate you being here. Iris, I don't know if you had any other questions.
Yes,
was there anything
else? Actually, yes. I really, first of all, I really want to thank you again, guys, for giving us your time here and for doing this amazing project in the first place. kind of landing into the topic from an outside world and allowing yourself to immerse in this disability life experience. I wanted to know if you guys have any plans for a future project that has something to do with the disability community or with caregiving in general.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, now we're like, we've learned all this stuff. What do we do? And we have all these connections now. How do we use it? So we do have a project in the very, very early stages that we're kind of exploring right now, just in pre-production in film terms. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot to share quite yet because it's still, you know, everything has like only a very small chance of actually happening until it's done. But yeah, we feel like this is a worthwhile pursuit. It's a community that we care about, that we can see that just doesn't get enough media attention, but then also has huge implications to our bigger society. Even if you're not a family impacted by disability, it's a minority group you could belong to at any point in life. So I think it's important that we all consider it, you know, from both the humanitarian side of things and like being, you know, thinking about your fellow humans, but then also just it is impacting our society, our economy, you know, we have labor shortages and all kinds of different challenges that are impacting all of us. So I think that's just another reason that we want to kind of stay in this realm of topics as we kind of continue our efforts in this area.
Yeah, I mean, we find ourselves in a situation where we have a close-up view at a lot of this, and we definitely feel the responsibility and are welcoming of that responsibility to continue, and probably would, in my opinion, wouldn't be fair to just do this and then say, okay, well, there you go, we did what we could. I'm very happy with how it's been received, but we want to make sure that we honor it as much as we can and pursue it as much as we can. So yeah, we'll see.
More to come. Sorry, that was shady. We didn't
we're just happy that you have plans to continue in some capacity. You don't have to tell us what it is, but we're happy to hear that you're going to be moving forward with more stories that are related to disability. But we're really grateful that you came and shared with us. Where can people see the film? Can you let us know how it's being viewed at this moment in time? And we are going to try to have a viewing in where we live, but in the meantime, where can people see this film and how can they get it?
Yeah, so right now we are focused on private screenings with partner organizations. So it's part of the strategy to get the film in venues online and in person where groups can facilitate conversations on these topics as well. So in most cases, it's a chance to watch the film and then also participate in a conversation about the issues, have a Q&A or some kind of panel discussion, how it impacts your local community or a special interest group you're a part of. So those are going to popping up all the time. And if you're interested in hearing about them, the best way is to sign up for our email list on our website. So if you go to Caregiver Doc.com and sign up there, that makes sure you get alerted when there's either one in your area or one online that you can access. And then we are also working toward another public showing an online public showing in November in connection with National Family Caregivers Month.
Great.
So same thing, go ahead and sign up or check our website for that because we'll share more details as it comes together.
All right, and we'll share that on our Facebook and Instagram pages as well.
Yeah, what we didn't want to do was make this and then literally just put it out on YouTube or something like that and just say, okay, here it is.
It's too easy to get ignored.
Yeah. And so we're trying to be pretty strategic and intentional about how it gets shown and where it gets shown. And so that'll continue for quite a while. But
so I always tell Carrie, like there's a method to the madness. Like, we're working on getting it out to, you know, through the strategic process where it's connected to opportunities for change in our local communities. So it's all
what we need.
Part of the process.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And everyone, Unseen, Unseen, and that is a perfect title because many of us are unseen, and this is going to change. I think this is really gonna. I've never seen anything like this before, so I think it's gonna pack a big punch for the people who see it and for people sharing it in business, in society, everywhere. So thank you so much again, and we hope we'll have you back on again at some point in the future.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right, and thanks everyone for tuning in to Two Moms No Fluff, and we'll see you and be back next week. Take care.
For more information, please go to www.twomomsnofluff.com. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give it a 5-star rating so more people can hear it. Thank you.